Fan, what's up? Kyle Henderson. Bama Football on YouTube coming to you on Sunday, October 29th. Can I get a roll tide inside the comment box? Appreciate you guys being here. Today we're playing 3 and out. Going to move through the calls today. Is Bama a top 4 team? Your college football top 4 right now. And I want to get your take on Bama versus LSU. So those are the 3 questions that we are rolling through today on this fine Sunday. I hope you make time to spend time with your family. Hope you make time to get outside. I know the weather's about to dip, but man, we've been having some beautiful fall weather, and it's almost time for Alabama versus LSU. Kickoff time, 6:45 p.m. I was driving through Tuscaloosa last night, and it was the exact same time, 6:45 p.m. And I was like, this is the time that here next week that Alabama and LSU will be getting going. So, look, when I talk about Bama as a top 4 team, Coach Saban doesn't want to hear it, doesn't want to think about it. But when you start to look to the college football playoff rankings, which, by the way, will drop this Tuesday. So the AP poll will come out today, and we can chomp on that a little bit, but that doesn't mean anything. The coaches poll doesn't mean anything. The College Football Playoff Rankings Committee decides the ultimate fate of the Alabama Crimson Tide and the rest of the team. So I was thinking about it right now, and I posted my top, 9 on a YouTube short, but let me run through it real quick, and then I want to get your take on Bama being a top 4 team and your college football top 4 right now. So number 1, I have the Georgia Bulldogs, and I get the Georgia Bulldogs are without Brock Bowers, but what they were able to do against Florida, I thought was impressive, and I thought Carson Beck moved the football around. I thought they ran the football really effectively, and they played a complete 4 quarters of football against the Florida Gators team. I know Dan Mullen even picked Florida to beat Georgia, and Kirby Smart gave him a little something after the game. So you clearly have Georgia at the number 1 spot. And I think when you look to the road to the playoffs for Alabama, you want Georgia to continue to win. And the reason is if an undefeated Georgia team is able to get into the SEC championship and Alabama is to beat that Georgia team, should Alabama make it there as well, I think that is going to send Alabama 1,000,000% into the college football playoffs. Number 2, I have Michigan. Now, Michigan and everything going around, the sign stealing, whatever. I mean, who knows if it's gossip, if it's just kind of hearsay or whatever the case is taking place. But something is happening, but I don't think that is really going to affect their playoff ranking. What is going to affect their playoff ranking is when their season starts here in November as they take on Penn State and they take on Ohio State. Now, where things could get squirrely is if you have a 1-loss Big Ten team sitting in there. And we'll talk about some of those scenarios in just a second. And I'll get to my phone lines in just a minute. We got a 586 and a 601 waiting, and I will get to you guys in just a second. Number 3, you have Ohio State. Ohio State, watched them last night against Wisconsin. They didn't have the overall offensive production, but this team continues to win. They are undefeated, and they will play Michigan. Now, it's going to be interesting to see when you look to scenarios if Ohio State is able to get in, let's say if they have 1 loss. What do you think? Do they have enough quality wins? I would probably say so. They have a couple early season victories that stand out. Florida State, I've been harping on them. I watched them yesterday against Wake Forest, and I know it's Wake Forest, but look, Jordan Travis can move the football. Those wide receivers are really good, and I think kind of going into this college football playoff ranking, regardless of what their schedule is and regardless that they played Boston College and Clemson down to the wire, it's a good football team, and they continue to win. They have the wide receivers. They were impressive. I mean, Jordan Travis can move the football around. I like him as a quarterback. And they have games remaining against Miami, Florida, and then, of course, the ACC championship. So, Florida State is certainly going to be a wild card or control their own destiny if they simply continue to win. Number 5, I have Washington. Did you guys watch Washington? Michael Penix is a very good quarterback as well. I think he moves the football effectively. And I watched them beat Stanford. That game was, 42-33 or something like that. Stanford had opportunities in that game, wasn't able to close the deal. Washington wins on the road in Palo Alto. Number 6, I guess you have Oregon. And by the way, did you know that Bo Nix has started in over 55 games or something like that? It's the most ever, I think, for a quarterback. And look, that win was impressive for Oregon to be able to go to Washington, on the road to Utah and be able to beat the Utes on the road. And they took care of the Utes. Now, they have 1 loss, which is to Washington. So we are watching the Pac-12. And then Texas, behind a backup quarterback, Malik Murphy, they were able to beat BYU. And number 8, I have Bama. So I have Bama and Texas ahead of Oklahoma because my rationale right now is you can't lose late. The college football rankings, I think, are clearly overall, but they're also right now. What are you doing for me right now? That's why playing in these critical games right now, you have to win. You cannot lose late. Like Penn State lost late to Ohio State. I guess it's not that bad of a loss, but it still is late. Oregon probably lost to Washington right before kind of the late term came in. And I think when you look to the college football playoff scenarios, you have Big Ten, Michigan. They're in the East, and so is Ohio State. So they're not going to play each other in the Big Ten championship game. Michigan still has Penn State and Ohio State left. Ohio State still has Michigan. ACC, you have Florida State unbeaten. As I mentioned, Miami, Florida in the ACC championship. SEC, Georgia has Ole Miss and Tennessee on the road. That's going to be interesting to see what happens. And they have Missouri. This is kind of the beginning of Georgia's schedule. But as I said in the opener, you have to have Georgia, in my opinion, win out, get to the SEC championship for Alabama to beat them. That's going to bolster Alabama's resume. Now, of course, if a one-loss Georgia gets in, and let's say they lose to Tennessee or something like that, and Alabama's able to win out, I still think Alabama gets in the playoffs. Alabama, as you know, has LSU, Kentucky, Auburn, and if they're able to take care of LSU, they get into the SEC championship game where they would play Georgia. That would be a great matchup. And I think for Alabama, that is their road to make the playoffs. And I love it because if you're able to play Georgia and let's say even Brock Bowers comes back or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Georgia's undefeated. That's going to garner the respect that Alabama needs again, right? There was teams that felt Alabama was vulnerable and that they could take advantage of Alabama following that one loss. But, Alabama, just like Jarvis is saying, all the goals are still in front of us. And I think that he's right. Alabama, all they have to do is continue to win. The Pac-12 teams, you have Washington. Now, Washington has Utah, USC, and Washington State still ahead of them. And then Oregon still has Oregon State. So a lot can happen, but the college football rankings do drop here on October 31st. I appreciate you guys being here with me on this fine Sunday morning. I'm coming to you all this week again inside that morning window at 9 a.m. as we prepare you for Alabama and LSU. With that said, let's get to the phone lines. We've got a 586. Let's take it right now. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who am I on the line with and where are you calling in from?
Morning, Kyle. It's Marcel from Detroit.
What's up, Marcel? I appreciate you calling in from Detroit, man. Good chat a couple days ago, man. When we look to this 3-and-out, is Bama a top 4 team as of October 29th? What you got? What about your overall? You kind of dove into it a little bit, but what is your college football top 4? Like, and it doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to include Alabama, but based off the criteria where we stand today, what does your college football top 4 look like right now?
I'll say Georgia's number 1.
Yep.
I'll say Michigan number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Just off schedule.
Yeah,
I know we talked about Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I know we talked about Florida State. I know they're not the best team, but right now they look really, really good.
Yep.
I'll say them 3. And that 4th spot, like I said, I'm having a hard time with that 4th spot. It's just hard for me to pick right now.
Yeah,
but if I had to say, I'll say Ohio State.
Yeah, I would probably say Ohio State as well. And I think, you look at the win over Notre Dame. You look at the win over Penn State. I mean, those are quality W's, right? And I think that Ohio State, and on top of that, is they are undefeated, and they will have their say against Michigan. And I do like your top 4. I mean, Michigan clearly, who's going to jump Georgia, and then Michigan right now. And the thing that Michigan has is they have style points, right? We've talked about their schedule. We don't like their schedule. We don't think that their schedule is strong, but they do have style points, and they are winning. But again, their schedule does not start until November. Like their schedule literally starts here in these next couple days.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Something, not to cut you off, but what is your take on Washington? Because I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I think when you look at Washington, number one, who doesn't like their quarterback? I mean, their quarterback is really talented, and I think it was a good display of quarterbacks yesterday for me to kind of watch. the quarterback for Florida State and Penix as well from Washington. And I think the thing about those quarterbacks is they have very good accuracy and they have the wide receivers to do it. And I think their offensive coordinators put them in good positions to let them be playmakers. I think Washington is a good team, and the staple win for them is clearly Oregon, which is a good team. We know that. But the thing about Washington is, look, they have a tough schedule coming up. I mean, they have a really tough November as well. They have Utah, they have USC, and they have Washington State, and they have the Pac-12 championship should they be able to win out. So those are tough games. I mean, Stanford played them really close last night, and I know that game was on the road in Palo Alto. Not the most challenging place to win, but I mean, road games are tough. I do like the quarterback, and I do like the, I don't know if overall their schedule of strength screams that much in terms of the SEC type volume, but the big win against Oregon said a lot. I know the game was at home, and I know it was tight, 36-33. But look, they won straight up, and I think Washington right now they're undefeated. But I just think that Washington is going to slip, and I still feel that Florida State is going to slip. And when you start to add those elements into who's going to be the top four, it gets really tricky, and it opens the door for Alabama, to be quite honest.